focus at the Centre Court MBA Festival as you think about your personal journey to business school. We talk about ROI, not just in terms of average salaries, but in terms of the personal learning experience that you're going to enjoy. And I'm delighted this next session focuses on the Mendoza College of Business at Notre Dame, because when we talk about all of those things, whether it's the extraordinary alumni that are recognized for the role, the influence, the support that they provide, the fact that 96% of the class of 22 accepted job offers just within 3 months. It's this fabulous STEM designated program where you can tailor majors, but shouldn't be me telling you all of this. It's just a program I'm really enthusiastic about. But I'm joined by Joe Sweeney. Joe is the MBA Academic Director and also an Assistant Teaching Professor of Management and Organization. And Tanique Philogène, who is going to be graduating this summer, the class of 23. She studied business and finance at undergrad, then had a wonderful position at Morgan Stanley as she moved from analyst to associate. So she's going to be telling us about her return to business school and a very exciting internship that she had last summer. But Joe, perhaps having welcomed both of you, we can start with you. I mentioned a little bit about the Magic of Mendoza, but share more, perhaps a little bit of introduction. When we talk about the mission and the values, it strikes me that that's something very much at the heart of the Mendoza experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much for having us on. It's really a pleasure to be with you today. So Notre Dame and the Mendoza College of Business are near and dear to my heart. I'm actually a graduate of the program. And so I've been right where a lot of the prospective students were through many of the years. And I think to me, there's always a couple things that really stand out about the way that we approach business. At the end of the day, business is a tool. It's not fundamentally good or bad, but the way that you use it really makes a difference. And one of the critical things that we think about in designing all of our programs, but particularly within the MBA program at Notre Dame, is thinking about how business can be a positive force in the world. How can it benefit more than just you and your family, which is very important. It's a critical part of getting an MBA is your career development and being able to support that. But how does it continue to support and develop communities and society at large? And so that's something that gets woven in throughout the curriculum, throughout the experience here at Notre Dame. And it manifests in a lot of different ways throughout the time that you spend at a place like Mendoza.
That sense of community, Joe, because your own studies and work, you've looked at how business, whether in Ghana and Tunisia or in Colombia, could then make a difference. So how do you then sort of bring those two together? And perhaps it translates into sort of boots on the ground field experience for the students.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that really shows itself throughout the program. So one of the things that I'm very proud of is we have a very robust set of experiential learning offerings within the program. Some of them are service-based experiential learning, which is a little bit of kind of what you're getting to. So under the umbrella of the Meyer Business on the Front Lines program, we have experiential service learning opportunities that work both internationally and domestically using the skills of business to be able to partner with live action partners on the ground in communities to advance job creation and the conditions for economic growth in those communities. So it's something that kind of puts your business skills to use in a real way as you're going through the program. Beyond those opportunities, there are a number of other experiential learning opportunities that the students have the opportunity to engage in as they go through. Think about something like applied investment management. We actually give a section of our university's endowment to a group of students to run every year. And you get to make real-time decisions on how the university should invest, what the parameters are for that investment, and then look at the return over time. So it's a way to really take the skills that you learn and put them into practice in a very real, very tangible way, in a way that not only benefits your learning and your growth, but has a larger impact beyond just yourself.
And in terms of the curriculum itself, Joe, you talk about being able to tailor that experience. And I guess that's through what, the sort of choice of majors that you might then focus on. And is that something that incoming students like Tanique had to work out straight away, or it's as you go through the 2-year program?
Yeah, so you have a little bit of time to get there, but there's a lot of flexibility that's built into the MBA program. So as is typical for most MBA programs, your first semester is a lot of your foundational classes. You'll take those kind of lockstep with your cohort as you go through. And then as we get into second semester and beyond, then you start to have more of your elective flexibility. We have 5 different major offerings here. So those are marketing, strategy, finance, digital marketing, marketing analytics, and business analytics. 3 of the 5 of those are STEM designated, which is a big thing for a lot of folks as they're looking at programs and thinking about the opportunities there. And then we also this year introduced a series of 13 minors that students have the opportunity to pursue as well. So these are things, if you think about the majors, they kind of index a little bit more closely to the career fields that most folks will go into. If you're going to go into corporate finance or investment banking, a finance major makes a lot of sense. But fewer people are going to go into careers that are, just international business. But a lot of you are going to work in an international business context. And so there's a set of minors that kind of address things that are a little bit more topical, but maybe not necessarily specifically career related. So it allows you to really craft and tell your own story in a way that you want to as you go through the program, because not everybody's coming from the same background. Maybe you come from a business background, a couple years of business experience, but you're looking to switch industry. That's one story. Maybe you were baking cupcakes for a couple of years and you want to transition into investment banking. That's a different story. And you might need some different validators and some different coursework to help really round out not only your skill set, but the way that you can present yourself to the marketplace going forward.
Well, I hope, Tanique, that Morgan Stanley gave you the time to make cupcakes, but take us back a couple of years, because there you were, 3 years with one of the major banks and promotions that took you to the associate level. So what was the thought process about going back to business school and choosing the right program? What were the considerations that you had?
Sure. Yeah. So, I think I knew all along that I wanted to come back and get my MBA. I wanted to get that work experience, and that's something that Morgan Stanley definitely gave me. I came out of undergrad, a finance major, and went into a financial services firm. However, I worked kind of in the operations space. I was working in client services for our fixed income institutional clients. And I found that I really enjoyed kind of that operations side of things more so than the financial side. So I knew I wanted to get my MBA, but at the time I decided that I would use that opportunity to kind of pivot outside of financial services and potentially into tech or consumer goods, and stay within the operations supply chain realm. And so that's where Notre Dame came in. The process of choosing schools was probably very similar to my peers. I had my initial list of criteria, good school, good reputation. Does it have kind of the interest that I'm looking in? Do they focus in it? What kind of professors? All that jazz was part of my little checklist. But when considering which schools to actually apply to and go to, Notre Dame stood out in so many different ways. Specifically, some of the things that Joe mentioned in terms of the experiential and service learning opportunities that they had. Additionally, the grow the good in business mindset that surprisingly not a lot of business schools emphasize when advertising, but Notre Dame kind of showed it in their students and in how they portrayed themselves across for potential students, how dedicated they are to developing ethical and well-rounded leaders. And that's something that really drew me in. On top of that, I heard from so many students about the wonderful opportunities and wonderful time that they had while they were getting their MBA here at Mendoza. And I heard about the amazing alumni network, which I thought, all schools have this amazing alumni network. And it's so amazing how much Notre Dame stands out in that, because their alumni are so willing and able to help students and potential students and prospective students as well. So all of that combined kind of made Notre Dame stand out higher than the rest. And the rest is history. That's how I ended up here. So, and I've loved it so far. And everything that I learned about during my investigating process all turned out to be extremely true and even better than what some people told me. So it all turned out great, and I'm in my second year here, so clearly I'm enjoying myself.
That, I wonder how complex that spreadsheet or matrix was, as you know, you're thinking about all of those different factors that mattered to you.
Right.
And as you balance, you know, here's a top 25 school, you know, tremendous average starting salaries coming out of the program, all of that sort of career potential and the transition you were looking for. But you also emphasize, you know, this community, that level of alumni network and genuine support, but also ethics. So how are you trying to then sort of weigh up, you know, what matters most for me, and then, you know, realizing Mendoza really is the place and the business school for me?
Sure, yeah. So to kind of tell you a little bit about myself, I very much like to, you know, get in there, get my hands dirty, you know, actually do something and make a difference. And Mendoza presented that opportunity in not only their classes and the coursework, but also in the service leadership and the experiential learning opportunities that they had. I knew that I was looking for a school where I could really develop those leadership skills and kind of put into practice the servant leadership mindset. And so just the tagline of grow the good in business, and then digging a little deeper and seeing the ways that they actually instill that in their students, it automatically drew me in. So I knew what I was looking for, and I knew I was looking for something where I could give back not only to, you know, the larger business world and community, but also the community where I'd be learning and experiencing and working with my peers. Notre Dame had all of that and more. So it kind of filled that big box that I didn't really realize I had until I started researching schools.
You no doubt had a heavy workload working in banking. Talk about the adjustment in terms of the learning experience, you know, the course load that you took on, and maybe just that transition going back to school. You know, it is a big step. What made a difference, I guess, you know, with classmates that were there and supporting you along the way?
Yeah, you know, it is a huge transition from working for 3+ years and moving back into that school mindset. So, you know, there was that typical having to get back into getting homework done and working with people on group projects and individual projects. So there's that, you know, normal adjustment period that's necessary. But what I really enjoyed was that so many of my peers were within that same adjustment period. So we kind of had to work together and lean on each other in different aspects and different work experiences. There are so many people with so many different backgrounds here. And we start off the school year with these learning groups, and they do a really good job of combining the different backgrounds and different experiences of the individuals that are starting the program. And so we kind of had to find opportunities and ways that we could assist others in our learning group. You know, someone who's strong in finance or strong in accounting was often helping those that maybe came from a history major or was, as Joe said, baking cupcakes before they came here. And it kind of fostered that supportive and collaborative environment that I've seen throughout my experience here. So while it was an adjustment, we definitely had different opportunities to support one another and also lean on one another. And I've seen it, you know, just in my learning group, but also in the friends that I've made and in all the classes I've taken where we've had group work or even individual work where we just might need a little bit of help. So we learned with each other, and we also learned how to help each other throughout those first couple classes, and then so forth and so on.
I think we're going to be responsible for a major spike in cupcake consumption in the Central community in the hours and the days that follow. And perhaps just one final thought, Tani, because you talk about the classroom, but of course that 2-year experience goes well beyond the classroom. You know, the different groups, activities, clubs. There are so many things. What role does that then play? And you know, was it actually difficult to choose because there were so many options?
Definitely difficult to choose. Like I said, I like to just jump right in and get started and get active and do stuff within the community. So I was, you know, already looking at the different club opportunities and leadership opportunities before even starting at Notre Dame. I think I'm a little weird in that, but definitely something I was already looking at. So there were so many options. But I looked for where I could actually make a difference and actually contribute. And that kind of helped me narrow down the options of what I was interested in getting involved with. So currently I'm a member in both the Black Graduates in Management Club and also the Women in Business Club. And then I also actively serve on the MBA Association. And that's kind of a big chunk of my time. So there's a lot of, balancing meetings and meeting with students and planning events and such, along with the coursework. So that's something that you kind of have a little bit of time to kind of get used to, which is great. And I've absolutely loved every single minute of serving, working with my peers and program leadership, all in the effort of making everyone else's experience here as great as it can be. So it's definitely a balance, and I definitely was overwhelmed in the beginning of figuring out where exactly I can contribute to this community. But I think in the time that I've been here, I've definitely found the different places where I can truly help not just the larger business world, but also the Notre Dame community here.
Right. Joe, you've enjoyed a distinguished academic career, but if I talk to you as the MBA graduate from Mendoza, just as you remember back to all of the clubs and activities and things that really fostering this community spirit, how do you feel that then contributes to the overall experience? A very personal learning journey.
Yeah, a couple things. Well, first, Tanique's selling herself short a little bit here as well. The other thing that she didn't mention that she was instrumental in was launching our Grow the Good Gala this year, which is a new charity fundraiser, which was entirely student-led and student-driven. So it was a big effort, and she did an incredible job leading that new initiative too. Back to your question, Matt, I think it's a couple of different things. If you think about the MBA experience, you're spending 2 years of your life, so it's much more than just what's in the classroom, right? So it's everything that helps you to not survive but to thrive. So what are you doing outside of the classroom? How does that impact your overall wellness, your excitement for life, your thirst for life? And one of the things that I think about in terms of the program is some of the other opportunities that you get to engage in that are a little bit unique to this time in your life. One of the things that I was very fortunate to be able to do when I was in the program was to study in Santiago, Chile for 7 weeks, which was a really incredible opportunity to go and live and explore a new country and a new region to me, and to be able to get to do it with a number of my classmates. And so we had a really unique shared experience. We're able to, continue to look back on that time together and have that as a shared bond as we've gone into our various corporate careers throughout the years. So I think it's something that helps to strengthen that community much more by being able to engage in those kind of unique opportunities that maybe you don't get to do when you're at work all the time, or maybe traveling for work all the time. It's a very different kind of thing to be able to travel in a study abroad kind of context than in a work kind of context.
Yeah. With that boots on the ground experience, we talked earlier about business on the front lines, and I encourage all of our viewers to look at some of the incredible projects that Mendoza students have embarked on. I also love the fact that there's this innate modesty, and Tanique is a great example, not talking about some of these wonderful achievements, accomplishments during her time at the school. But you talked, Joe, about, we do leadership differently, and it's a smaller program with these meaningful relationships. Do you see that as one of the key differentiators of the MBA program?
Yeah, so you mentioned the small size. That's very intentional. If you think about the way that you build relationships and the way that the community forms, being able to really get to know everybody has a really profound impact on that. And that starts from day one. We kick off the orientation session with Leadership Launch, which is kind of a custom-built leadership program that kind of starts your journey. And then one of the other things, and Tanique touched on this a little bit, is there's a lot of opportunities for leadership within the program as well. And again, because it's a little bit of a smaller program, it increases the opportunity for everybody to engage in these types of things and to really have impact in what they want to do. So whether it's the MBA Association, which kind of sits on top of all of the student life from that standpoint, or whether it's one of our affinity clubs or a career focused club, there's a lot of opportunity to be able to really get your hands on something and make it your own in the time that you're here. So there's some practical application that gets built in. The other thing that ends up happening is, again, with some of these experiential learning opportunities, there end up being some built-in leadership opportunities that come along with that as well. When we send folks into the field for Frontlines in America or Business on the Front Lines or frontline engagements, a lot of times we're subdividing into teams of 5 or 6. And, as an instructor, there's only one of me, but if I've got teams in 4 different locations, we'll have oftentimes an alumni advisor that will travel with the team, but a lot of the leadership on the actual problem solving and the actual work that's being done is being done internally from a team standpoint. So being in those real world situations really helps to develop that in real time and create opportunities throughout the program where you get to really put your stamp on something in real time.
It's a big investment, Joe, to head to business school, certainly when you're enjoying the sort of successful career that Tanique has. And as we look at, the uncertainties of the economy, it's very difficult to predict what 2023 will look like. What is your sort of underlying enduring advice about investing in yourself, gaining this extraordinary experience? You talk about the tools that it will provide, but, this life learning experience. So helping our viewers perhaps just to sort of think through how they align their passions, their interests, their hopes and dreams for their career with business school. What advice would you share?
Yeah, so I always encourage students to really think about what they want to take away from an experience like this and really take the long view on it. I think one of the things that was most impactful to me going through business school was a really significant change in mindset. I had a couple of years of work experience, and so, I'd grown a little bit as a professional, but really being able to pivot your perspective can have a really significant impact on your career. The other thing I encourage people to always think about too is, what does an MBA really set you up for? There's a set of things that an MBA is really great at, and there's a set of things that an MBA is maybe not the best thing for. And so consider that part of the investment very carefully. It's easy to look at kind of the top line stats sometimes and say, oh, average starting salary was, such and such, and that's a big number, and that's great. But it tends to go into a couple of key directions, and so making sure that that's aligned to where you want to be long term is also really important. I think one of the things to think about, the market will always ebb and flow a little bit from a macro standpoint, but the kind of core skill set that you pick up in an MBA allows you to be really transferable as you move deeper and deeper into your career. Think about things like leadership, critical thinking, innovation, communication. Those are all things that are going to be really important as you grow and develop. A lot of the harder skills are going to, kind of come and go as technologies grow and evolve. But some of those bigger things that you pick up with that mindset are skills that you'll be able to carry with you for the rest of your career.
Tanique, you perhaps can't believe that, you're approaching the end of the program. It's gone by so quickly, and, the summer is fast approaching. I'd love to talk about the internship that you did with Amazon, specifically with AWS, and, the value of that internship. Perhaps include that as you just think about 2 or 3 of the experiences of your 2 years at Mendoza that have really stood out for you and the impact that you think that they've had.
Yeah. So my summer with Amazon was absolutely wonderful. I learned so much. I worked specifically with AWS on their power and cooling team. So it was a little bit of supply chain for their data centers. So here at Mendoza, I'm focusing on operations, supply chain, as well as strategy. And so the summer was a great opportunity to apply some of the courses I took last year and, what I've learned so far. And it was illuminating in terms of what I want out of my career further in the future. So I will be returning after graduation to Amazon AWS, and I might not be in that particular team, but I'm very excited to kind of continue that journey with Amazon as well. So I guess tying into kind of the most impactful moments that I've had here, something that I think a lot of business schools have is a stigma around it about, being very cutthroat and being very, competitive in terms of against your peers. And what I've seen here instead at Mendoza is the idea of a community, not just in the sense that we're working together, but we're also supporting one another. So there have been so many moments that I've been here so far where I have felt, overwhelmed and busy and stressed. And I've had so many peers and friends that are here that I can lean on in terms of support. And I've tried to do my best to lend that support back. There's been times, last year where I had just started the my time with the MBA Association, and I was taking some of a harder course load, some of the core classes, as well as classes I selected for myself. And I would find myself, sitting in a lounge and being very stressed and kind of worrying and, hunched over my computer typing things out. And so many times I had, friends and peers come up to me and say, "Hey, is there something I can help with? Do you want to talk through something? Is there something that, we can support you with?" And that has continued not just last year, but this year as well. And it just signifies how supportive the community here is at Notre Dame. And so those moments have just kind of shown me that, business school isn't meant to be cutthroat competition. It's more so meant to help people grow as leaders, as servants, and as people that are here to better support the larger world around them. And I've loved seeing that, and I've loved experiencing it here so far.
Well, you're a wonderful, wonderful ambassador for the experience. Perhaps just a final word for the next generation of applicants to Mendoza, and just thinking about the MBA in general. What would that advice be, now knowing what you know?
My biggest piece of advice would be to speak to as many people as you can. I truly got an understanding of what Mendoza was about, not so much from looking on the website or seeing articles and stats, but more so from speaking to current students and past students and hearing about their experience. You really and truly understand how great it is here by hearing them talk about, their classes and the experiences they had, not just abroad, but locally, and just the time that they spent here and what they learned and what they took out of the experience. So I recommend, reaching out to people. The alumni network is just kind of a reflection of how the people are here. So if it's so much as shooting a message on LinkedIn or connecting with a student via the website, they will give you their honest truth and tell you about their experiences here. And I highly recommend that, because you'll truly understand what it is to be a Mendoza student.
Right, and as many voices as possible. Joe, and anything that you'd add, because of course with your team you work very hard to, provide that sort of insight and just a taste of the Mendoza MBA. How our viewers should get in touch with the school in considering next steps.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Tanique mentioned, reaching out to students is a great way to get a feel for it. So there's actually a section on the website called Contact a Student, and you can reach out to a set of students directly. So you can have that as a direct connection. The website is mendoza.nd.edu. And of course, there's requests for information forms that are on there. You can also reach out if you want to send an email to mba.business@nd.edu. And one of our wonderful admissions team members will certainly follow up with you quickly and help to answer any of your questions that you might have on timing or process as well.
And I guess viewers, as they're watching this early February, just a couple of the more practical details. You've offered a GMAT test waiver through the admission cycle of 2022-23, and then presumably then gearing up for next year, but still time to apply if someone's eager to join the school in the fall of this year.
Yes, we have a couple more application deadlines. You can find those on the website as well. So we typically recommend that any international students apply as early as possible because of the visa process considerations that go along with that for transition. But particularly for domestic candidates, it's definitely not too late to apply. I'll again speak to my own experience. I actually didn't apply until the final round when I went through the process, because I wasn't even considering getting an MBA until about this time in the year. So if you're just getting started, it's not too late for this cycle at all. From that standpoint, everybody kind of comes to that decision point a little bit differently in their career. And so there's plenty of time still to submit for this year's application to be considered for our program to start later this year.
Well, you've both given us a wonderful taste of the school, of its culture. Joe, you talked about taking that long view and the idea of heading back to business school for the MBA. And I guess, Tanique, with the examples you gave of such a supportive network, which which is going to extend well beyond the 2 years. And I'm sure that, you know, with your classmates, the lifelong friendships, and they'll still be saying, hey, you know, how can we help? All of you, I think, with that sense of service and commitment to each other. So thank you to both of you for joining us at Centre Court to be able to share those experiences. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having us, Matt.